This is going to be a video on my Beatles Yesterday and Today collection, and before we begin I have to let you know right off I do not have a original Butcher cover, so we'll take that off the table right away. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Yesterday and Today album. It was released in June of 1966, and of course it is most infamous for the original Butcher cover, which had to be removed due to public outcry at the time. The Butcher cover itself, the actual photograph, was taken on March 25th, 1966, and it was taken by photographer Robert Whitaker, and it was part of a photo session with a larger theme of the Beatles and their fame and what it meant to be a celebrity. And so it was one in many different photographs that were taken on that particular theme. And the actual title of the theme that Robert Whitaker used was A Somnambulant Adventure. And the actual Butcher photograph was one of 12 that were actually taken of the Beatles with the baby dolls and pieces of meat. There were also photographs of John hammering a nail into George's head, a picture of Ringo in a box, John holding Ringo in the box with 2 million written on the box, which was meant to signify Ringo was simply just one individual in 2 million, and that really when it came down to it, he wasn't any different than the rest of us. So that was the general theme that Robert Whitaker was using. Now, originally there were actually blood stains also on the Butcher jackets that the Beatles were wearing. However, the Capitol Art Department airbrushed those out because, as if the photograph wasn't already in questionable taste, the blood stains would have just pushed it completely over the edge. So there were 750,000 copies that were actually printed out, and of course, after they were released and there was the outcry, they were all sent back. The ones that hadn't been sold were pasted over, and then they used a different photograph. And the photograph that they actually ended up using, and what most people don't realize, is that the photo that's actually on Yesterday Today is a mirror image. I'm taking this photograph. This is from the book The Beatles Story on Capitol Records, and this is a great book by Bruce Spicer. If you have any of his books, you know how excellent they are. And this actually shows the original photograph right here, the way that it was actually taken. And so they reversed it for the album cover. This is my mono copy. And for anybody who's new to record collecting, particularly the Beatles, if you're not sure whether you have a mono copy or not, number one, there's not the stereo at the top, and then also at the bottom, very bottom, it says this monophonic micro groove recording. So just a bit of information there. This is my original stereo copy. And unfortunately, I don't have the original inner sleeve on that one. And unfortunately, somebody also wrote their name on the back, which is one of my most annoying record collecting pet peeves, if you will. The only other copy I have on vinyl is this on the orange Capitol label. And these were released in the late 70s, I believe. Mid to late 70s, I'm pretty sure. And then Capitol actually reprinted the full Butcher cover photograph as part of this album. This is the Beatles Rarities, which was released in 1980. Does not have the blood stains, but nonetheless, that was the actual uncropped photograph that they used. This is the cassette. And the songs on the cassette are out of order, as you might expect from a cassette. This one has on side one, Drive My Car, I'm Only Sleeping, Nowhere Man, What Goes On, and Day Tripper at the end. And then on side two, it starts off with Dr. Robert, then Yesterday, Act Naturally, and Your Bird Can Sing, If I Needed Someone, and We Can Work It Out. And then this was the first CD issue, at least official CD issue of this as part of the US albums box set that was released a few years ago. And the cool thing about this is that this is a sticker right here, and the actual CD sleeve is the original butcher cover. And these are exact replicas, mini replicas of the album as it was originally released, right down to the inner sleeve, of course. Now, as far as Yesterday Today as an album, this was pretty much the leftover tracks that Capitol had siphoned off of the original British albums. You have Act Naturally, which of course was track one, side two of the British Help album. You've got Yesterday, which was also taken from side two of the Help album. Drive My Car, Nowhere Man, If I Needed Someone, and What Goes On were taken from the Rubber Soul album in order that the American Rubber Soul could sound more like a folk rock album in the style of Simon and Garfunkel and Bob Dylan and the Byrds. And then there were three songs that were released in advance of the British Revolver album. That would be Dr. Robert and Your Bird Can Sing, and I'm Only Sleeping. And then there's both sides of the Day Tripper single, Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out. And that is pretty much her album here. I think it holds well together as sort of an electric rock album. I don't mind it. I said before in my Rubber Soul video, I really like the way that the American Rubber Soul album hangs together and does have that folk rock feel. And same here, this has got some more, for the time anyway, harder rocking songs with Yesterday kind of in there to balance it out. So I really do enjoy this as an album, and myself, like most Americans, were unaware of the differences between the American and the British albums. So it was a surprise to find that songs like And Your Bird Can Sing and Dr. Robert were on the Revolver album and not from a different album altogether. But nonetheless, I do enjoy this album, and it's not a butcher, but good enough for me at the moment. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all your comments, and I hope everybody is safe and well, and take care of yourselves.